Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 12 of Visions of Tomorrow, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of VisionGT cars. Concept cars which are loosed from the restrictions of production vehicles or road cars, vehicles which allow the designers and engineers to have fun, to make something that doesn't necessarily need to even fit within the realms of reality, such as with the Chaparral VisionGT and the Tomahawks. In this particular episode though, we are featuring one of the slightly more feasible and more mechanically grounded VGTs, and also this is one of the relatively few VGT cars that's actually not a completely original design. It is based on an existing concept car, the Lexus LF-LC, and this version is the LF-LC VisionGT, which essentially takes the LF-LC concept and then turns it into a race car, in effect. Now, we're not told all of the specs in relation to this car, but the specs that we are given are pretty good. The car sits at 634 pp, which I would actually say is really good for this car. Many VisionGTs, or sometimes other cars in general, can very easily have a PP that is actually kind of too high, and they're not really competitive enough at that level. 634 pp for this car though, I would say is just about perfect. It's not too high, but at the same time it's high enough to recognise the car's potential and performance. With the aid of an oil change, this car can put out 642 horsepower, which is pretty decent, and 357 foot-pounds of torque. So it's clearly a very high revving engine rather than a torquey low-end thumpy engine. The car only weighs 1,075 kilos though, so it doesn't really need all that much torque. And thanks to that low weight, it puts out just under 600 horsepower per tonne. Now, like most of the other VGTs, it costs 1 million credits. So the real question is, if you don't own the Lexus VisionGT, is it worth spending 1 million of your credits to get one? Well, to be honest, it depends, because this car has some very good upsides, but also some downsides, as with most vehicles. But the ironic thing about this car is that some of its good points are actually kind of also its bad points at the same time. For instance, the handling. I would say that the handling of the LF-LC is possibly its best attribute. It has so much grip, and it is very, very beginner friendly that it makes a perfect car to introduce less experienced drivers to the concept of driving very high performance race cars. At the same time though, it costs 1 million credits, which very few beginners will have. And there are much cheaper race cars that are just as good. Another issue is that the car has boost assistance, and this assistance can lead the car into having quite severe understeer on occasions, especially on the front end. It can sometimes feel very much like a front-wheel drive car, and that's not always the best of things on tracks that would usually require a very good light front end to enhance the turn-in of your race car. So, as I said, it's a good point on the handling, but at the same time it's sometimes a bad point, because it sometimes feels as though it has a bit too much grip. As far as straight line performance, it's good enough to take on most GT class race cars on most tracks. It doesn't have the most amazing of top speeds in that regard, but it's good enough for most circuits. With the low aero setting and a more top speed biased gearbox ratio setup, you can get this car up around 235, 240 under its own power, so it's not slow. That puts it on par with, say, some of the Corvette race cars, the Camaro race car, the Lister Storm, and a couple of others. So it doesn't fall behind the pack, but at the same time it's not going to take on anything like the GT by Citroën or the Zonda R or an FXX anytime soon. As far as VGTs go, I would say though that the Lexus is one of the better ones, because although it is a race car and it is kind of in a class of its own among the VGT lineup, it's a lot better than many of the other Vision GTs in one particular way, and that is that we're allowed to tune it, specifically the gearbox. Because any Vision GT that's released, and I have mentioned this on the channel before, but any Vision GT that's released that cannot be tuned in any way really hampers its usability for me personally. If you can't tune the car, that means that whatever you get is what you're stuck with. And if that's not particularly good, then there's not much you can do about that. That automatically means for me personally that I probably won't end up using that car all that much. In the case of a car that can be tuned though, at least to some degree, such as the Lexus, you can personalise the car, you can find what works best with it on different tracks, you can improve it, you can set it up for different circuits, and you can do that with the Lexus, specifically with that gearbox. Now, as far as whether or not I would recommend buying it, that would depend, at least to some degree, on the kind of driver that you are and the kind of car that you're looking for. If you're looking for a good Vision GT car, all round, for the looks, the sound, the handling, the speed, etc., then it is a very good one. It can beat most of the other VGTs around a circuit. But if you're buying it purely to own it as a race car and to take it up against existing racing cars, then caution is needed, because 1 million credits in the GT class is a lot. You can get a lot of good GT cars for much less. Even in the Super GT class of the Japanese race cars, very few of them cost anywhere near that kind of price. And those cars can be upgraded, whereas this one cannot, and that is a major downside. So, it depends, as I said, on what kind of purpose you're planning to use the car for. If you are planning to use it for taking on existing race cars, you need to be careful, because 1 million credits is a lot given its actual limitations of competitiveness. If though you're just looking for a fun, fast Vision GT, then it's a great car. It sounds unique, it looks pretty good, it has a pretty unique livery option with the kind of rainbow chrome effect livery stripes, and when it came out on GT6, it pretty much became an instant classic among the community, and it's still a very popular car to use. So that's it overall for this particular review of the LF-LC Vision GT. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.